If you watched the fight between George Kambosos and Teofimo Lopez, I'm pretty sure you were satisfied like just about any boxing fan was. Guys, we don't need to split hairs over who won the fight. Personally, I believe the right man got the decision. I do think that 115-111 was, maybe a bit different. I thought the fight was really close, won by only a couple of points, but it was a war. And that's what I was very glad to see, was both guys going out there, both guys walking forward. Because there was a lot of hype leading up to this fight, and everybody was telling George Kambosos after the, when they had the show off back and forth, and Teofimo said he was going to put his foot on his neck, or whatever he said. I don't remember what he said exactly. But everyone was telling George, you better keep that same energy when you get inside the ring, because I don't think you're going to do it, blah, blah, blah. George was an underdog leading to this fight. And man, oh man, when the underdog performs well, that's one thing. But when the underdog goes out there, performs well, and wins, it's even better. So like, that was, to me, that fight was, almost like, a Robbie Lawler versus Roy McDonald type fight. But I was satisfied. From Teofimo Lopez, minus what he said afterwards, he still fought a good fight. Him thinking he went 10-2, no, absolutely not. Fight was very close. I think that a lot of the earlier rounds, the guys who won the round, it was very, very clear. We got to like between 9 and 10-ish, well, definitely when Teofimo dropped Kambosos, it was clear that he won that round. He finished really well, came out again really strong after that. 11 and 12, last two rounds I thought were clearly Kambosos, but I'm not going to split hairs over who won the fight, guys. I'm just talking about how well it went and a couple things that I saw that I felt guys could do better. So from Lopez, I think for him, the big takeaway for this is not to expect everyone to be afraid of his power. Because a lot of my friend told me he lost that fight. By the way, he said that it wasn't going past 4. He figured Teofimo would knock Kambosos out in the 4th because Kambosos was too small and Teofimo was kind of big for that weight class, in his opinion. So he said, I don't think it's going past 4. From Teofimo, though, he said my friend told me he lost the fight because he didn't fight like Teofimo usually fights. And I thought, no, he pretty much did. Yeah, he was doing a bit of head hunting, but aside from that, he was still fighting the way he usually does. He said, well, he didn't use his jab as much. He was, trying to land that big shot. I said, well, the reason why it was harder for him to set those things up is because when he fought Lomachenko, which is the best example, every time Lomachenko was in the line of fire, he was not trying to punch his way to a new position or try to stuff that punch from Teofimo. He wasn't trying to stuff Teofimo's right hand. He was trying to get away from it completely and trying to kind of, like make Teofimo move forward. And when Teofimo didn't do that, it kind of shut him down. With Kambosos, it went differently. I'm going to talk about Kambosos in a second, but basically that was the thing. Whenever he was setting that up, you have basically your hands are your guns. That's what my coach calls them. And whenever you want to go to a different position, you don't just angle change, haphazardly. You angle change usually when your opponent's coming forward. That's how you get away. But also, you can step out. You can step off your opponent's line of fire, but you can keep them on yours and still land against them. So basically, that was not the way that Lomachenko was getting away from Lopez's right hand. George was not doing that. So I think for Teofimo, the biggest takeaway is don't expect everyone to be afraid of your power. Even if you land a big shot, not everybody is going to, fight timidly. Like, okay, I'm going to avoid that at all costs. There are some people who are just not made the same. So for Kambosos, like I said, great fight. And to me, what he did to shut down a lot of Teofimo was he walked onto the punches. Now, this is not always the best strategy, and please do not tell people, hey, he thinks everybody should fight like Nate Diaz and just wait for your opponent to be tired from throwing punches. No. Use defense. Use blocking. Use head movement. Use footwork to get out the way of punches. Set up your counter punches. Hit and not get hit. Try not to get hit as much as possible. But sometimes, if people are much closer to your level, that's harder to do. If the gap between you guys is like this, yeah, if you're up here and your opponent, if your defense and offense are up here and your opponent's defense is here and his offense is here, you're probably going to be able to, look like a show-off when you're fighting him. But the closer the gap between you guys' skills gets together, even if it's like this, it's very difficult for you guys to achieve. I remember one wrestler was talking about if you take, 10,000, 1,000 or 10,000 of the best wrestlers on the planet, he said the difference in skill between those guys is less than 1%. So even someone who beats 10, if he beats 10 guys, he said the skill level between them is less than 1%. That gap is extremely small. So the higher up in competition you go, the smaller those gaps become. Now, I understand there are stylistic matchups that on paper make it look very different, but that's why stylistic matchups are 50-50, because both guys are very skilled. It's just that that particular style has a weakness against someone who's also very skilled in another particular style. So to me, what Kambosos really did well was he walked onto the punch and he was eating it well. You notice he kept that chin tucked in, very good. Something I have to work on myself a lot. But a lot of the punches were here. Now, like Coach told me, he said you can take a lot more here than you can here. Not that you should, but if you're against somebody where you have to walk through the fire, it's best to take it right there. Even Bas Rutten, you know, you guys can look up his story where he talks about how he broke a guy's hand with his head, because naturally the bones in your head are much harder than the bones in the hand. That's why you have to condition your fist to punch somebody in the face, and why when people fight without gloves, a lot of times they get hairline fractures or broken hands or their skin breaks. You know, I've hit some people before in life, never broken any bones, thank God. But the bones in the head are much harder. So Kambosos was able to walk through a lot of those punches because he was prepared to take them. Now, like I said, that's not always the best strategy. If you want a long career, do not fight like that all the time. But once in a while, you might have to eat one to land one. I talked about this when I talked about Zhang versus Joanna. That's basically what she did. She was eating usually sometimes too, but she had to eat one to land one. And with Kambosos, he was taking it more so here, but he was landing a lot more of his shots on the chin when he was counterpunching. At least he was aiming to. I know both guys were, but it's much more difficult to when your opponent's chin is down. If your opponent's fighting with their chin, even just like this, even if they're crouching but their chin's still up, if it's not tucked, it's much easier for you to land on their chin than it is for them to land on your chin if your chin is tucked down really well. So he did take a lot of shots. You know, he got hit in that fight as well. He got dropped in that fight. He didn't really get wobbled except when he got dropped and Teofimo came up after him. He was his legs were a bit wobbled. I don't think his head was dazed, like he didn't know where he was, but I do think his legs were a bit more wobbled after that. But he fought through it, and he was still counterpunching, and you know, he was still firing off those hooks against Lopez. So, you know, that's my reaction to the fight, guys. As far as the fight goes, like I said, minus any of the talk that happened afterwards, but just the fight and the hype that was built up around it. You know, Kambosos, he delivered. You know, he kept the same energy that he had when he was talking up to the fight, when he went in there and fought. And, you know, Lopez, I know people want to give him a lot of flack for what he said afterwards, but if you just look at those 12 rounds, guys, for a lot of what he said, you know, he kept it. He kept fighting when he was in there too. He got dropped and got back up as well. You know, he got hit with big shots and kept moving forward as well. So, you know, credit to both guys as far as their fighting goes. Do I think Lopez can come back from this? Absolutely. Like I said, the fight was close. Do I think that, am I glad that George won for him? Absolutely. Yeah, you know, I like when the underdog wins. I'm the dedicated Spartan. I'm not going to, you know, root for the Spartan. But no, I'm really glad he won. And like I said, I was glad that he fought the way he fought. You know, neither one of them were trying to run from each other in there. Neither one of them were trying to, you know, leave it in the judge's hands. In the 12th round, they both came out there firing away, trying to put each other away. And that was good because they backed up what they said they were going to do. You know, Lopez obviously not. He wasn't able to knock him out in the first round. My point is, though, they went out there fighting. I shouldn't say they backed necessarily. George did. You know, George did everything he said he was going to do. Came forward fighting. You know, he was looking for a knockout. And they're like, he's not known for knockout power. He's not known for having hard hands. You know, for a guy with what they call pillow hands or brittle hands or soft hands or whatever, you know, he was doing a whole lot of damage with those hands. Landing combinations, you know, very good. Manny Pacquiao gave him props for getting that big victory, getting all those belts around his waist. And I'm glad Kambosos won because to me, from what I've seen, and I hope this stays the same, Kambosos doesn't duck. He doesn't run from anybody. So, you know, Haney, Tank, you know, all those guys in his division, they got to be on alert now. It's time for them to step up to it because there's a new challenger. You know, there's a new, what they say, there's a new king on the block here, really. You know, there's a new lion out there. And so, you know, stay strong, stay Spartan, keep going forward. Thank you all for watching. See you all in the next one. Got some more breakdowns coming for you, and I got to get back to work.